Welcome to my video review of the Palit Kalm X GeForce GTX 750 Ti. This is a graphics card released a couple of years ago, but it was I got this for a replacement card for a quiet computer. Looking at the back, we'll see some of the specs and information. It's pretty much standard stuff now, although the driver support has been extended with this card, so you're still getting DirectX 12 out of it too from Nvidia with the drivers. The games listed here are the ones that should run pretty well off of this card. As far as the system requirements go, pretty straightforward stuff. They recommend a reasonable amount of RAM, 4 GB or higher is recommended. Specs isn't going to be a problem with this, although you'd want to pair it with a half decent processor, at least something like a quad core. Power supply requirements are very low, it's 300 watts or greater. That's due to the fact the card draws about 60 watts or just less than that. The Thundermaster software allows you to overclock, and it also gives you some information on the temperatures of the card. It's a fairly basic app, but it works okay. Included you get a basic installation guide and a driver CD. This has the software on it as well for the utility, but you're probably better off going off to the website and downloading the latest drivers for that. Unboxing this, you'll see that there's a lot of cardboard. It's recycle friendly as such, but has to be said, the box is bigger than it needs to be. The card itself isn't too huge, it's just over 20 centimeters in length, but you lose the second slot. That's because of the ventilation holes on one of the top sections. There's also a plastic sticker here, so you want to remove that before you fit it. When it's idling, the card doesn't really get hot, it gets very slightly warm, but it does get hotter when it's under load. The heatsink's quite big on this, and it does a pretty good job of dissipating the heat, at least I found. So it's idling in around about the 30 degrees in Celsius, and I was getting into the sort of 50s. Bear in mind I have a case fan front and back, but they're slow spinning 120mm fans. Once we look at the connections, we have a mini HDMI and 2 DVIs. I would have preferred if they went with a larger HDMI or just one DVI and another HDMI full-size socket. So you might need to get an adapter for that, or a cable with a mini HDMI connector on it. The heatsink itself, it's quite well made, it seems to be well spaced, and you have 2 heat pipes coming off of it as well. So it does a decent job of creating a larger surface area. So the obvious appeal here is no fan at all, so that means there's absolutely no noise from the card. You shouldn't have any problems fitting this into a smaller case. The length isn't too long. The extra slot, that's probably not going to be a problem. I lost a PCI Express slot on my computer for that. I'm comparing it now to the 6570, which Sapphire card, 1 gig, which was around about 2011. So even though this card is not particularly up to date by modern standards, it is significantly faster than the 6570 card in every respect, with a very similar power performance, power consumption on it. You'll notice the heatsink is quite a bit bigger on the Palit than the Sapphire, which is a single, that just takes a single slot for the Sapphire. That was one potential advantage with that card. The performance can't really be compared between the two because there is a huge difference. I mean, this is one of the upgrades where there is a massive performance boost without an additional power drain. Fitting it to the computer, you can see here, not a problem for me losing the slot below it. I've got a full size mid-size tower on this, but if you have a micro ATX, you're not going to have any problems at all with that, other than possibly losing that slot. The heatsink on the chipset, the Southbridge chipset, the clearance was okay on that. There's really about 5mm, 6mm spare. That shouldn't be a problem. Looking at a couple of games that I tested, the game here is Hitman Absolution. I still play that a bit, and I found that the frame rates were good on that. This is at the ultra settings. You won't have any complaints with the performance for that. I did find the average frame rate was actually higher than the RX 460, but the maximum frame rate on the RX 460 was a bit higher, up into sort of 80s. This is Company Heroes. It's an old game. Strangely, it's still quite demanding on graphics cards. I was finding it was really struggling on the old Sapphire card. You can see even the minimum frame rate there. It's probably CPU bound. It doesn't take advantage of the newer multi-core processors. I think it only works with the dual core. It doesn't really understand sort of 6 or 8 core processors. So wrapping up with the Palit, pretty good little card. It still performs quite well, gives you a similar performance to the PS4 or the Xbox One for about £100, just over. So if you're a quiet PC fan, it's worth looking at.